I finally did the thing. I've done it. I've finally released an album. It is uploading right now, right behind me. It's gonna take at least an hour, but it's finally happening. All these years of, not thinking I'm good enough or second guessing myself, deleting tracks, completely blowing tracks off, unfinishing things. Finally, I've released something. I hope that it's good. I hope someone out there enjoys it. But I am just happy to have finally released an album. Finally. I've done something musically, and I'm proud of it. I know it's called Doodle Beats, and the whole premise is, they're not perfect, they're just kind of doodles. It's the whole premise of the album is it's me trying to find my sound. So it's kind of chronological for the most part. So let's just go down the track list. This song was the first track I made in a DAW in my adult life. I played with FL Studio. Well, my dad introduced it to me when I was a child, and it was called Fruity Loops. And when I was a teenager, it was called FL Studio, and I played with it a little bit. But I didn't really start taking it seriously until I was an adult. But by that time, I didn't have it, right? So like my dad had Fruity Loops. In high school, I pirated FL Studio. And as an adult, I'm like, I'm not gonna pirate FL Studio. So I found some weird free DAW. I don't remember what it was called. I can't find it anymore, so I don't think it was a good one. GSC is short for Girl Scout Cookies. So that was the first track I ever made. This isn't that because I didn't know anything about mixing or anything like that. So I just had an MP3, not even a good quality audio file. I had an MP3 of this track, and I remade the track, kind of. It's not a one-for-one remake, but I remade it to the best of my ability a few years ago. So that's why it's the first track on the album, because I kind of want to show my journey as producer, beatmaker, whatever this is called. I know a lot of people get weird about the titles. So these 3 tracks were all in a time where I was trying to sell beats on BeatStars. Jungle Gym and Dig Dug were on BeatStars. Kite was not. Kite was actually the last video I ever uploaded. Well, I can't say that because I'm uploading these videos, but it was the last video I uploaded on YouTube before I took a 5-year break. Jungle Gym and Dig Dug are 2 of my favorite tracks that I uploaded to BeatStars when I was trying to sell beats, and Kite is one of my favorite beats I've made. It's just weird. It's kind of a weird beat, and I love that about it. The reason I picked these over the other ones is when I was making beats at the time, I was stuck in tutorial hell is what it's called, where I could only make beats following a guide, a certain set of guidelines from tutorials. There was a few producers on YouTube at the time that were big. I would end up locking myself in to this way of making beats that was really not fun for me. It was grindy, and I wasn't really enjoying it or having fun. The market was just oversaturated. There's so many people making beats. It really doesn't matter how good your beat is. You just need the traction of social media to stir you along, and then you get more plays, and then you're gonna be more recommended because you have more plays. I mean, how do you curate that? without having a dedicated group of people listening to every track uploaded when there's probably thousands of tracks uploaded a day. It was just madness. So I knew it was unsustainable, and that's why I stopped. So Strum and Creep were tracks I made using samples. Now, they're not the first songs I used samples with. By the way, Dig Dug, I did not use samples. I used MIDI. Got a synth sound that sounded pretty close to what the Dig Dug sound was. So that's what that was. But I really wanted to use samples and kind of chop up samples and stuff. So that's what Strum and Creep is me. They're not the first ones I did samples for. There's actually a lot of beats I made using samples, but I had no idea how that would work with. I know I'm a nobody, so I would probably get away with uploading beats with samples in it, but I didn't even want to risk it. I didn't want to test it. So I'm trying to learn how to sample and everything. So I'm using samples from these sample packs that I bought. I got so many sample packs at this time. And I didn't just want to drag and drop a sample and put drums over it. I actually wanted to chop up the samples and do something with them. So that's what this is. Strum is kind of I don't even know. I don't even know what kind of beat that is. Which is another reason I stopped the selling beats thing, because it was always, a type beat. I gotta make this type beat or that type beat. I don't know what type beat it is. I'm trying to find my own type. I'm trying to figure out what kind of sound I make. Yeah, I didn't know really how to do that with Strum or with Creep. Also samples, but what makes these two tracks different is these were beat contests. So I entered these beats into beat contests. I don't think anyone listened to them. The way beat contests worked at the time, I don't know if they still work like this, is you would upload your beat to the contest and you would share your beat and get a bunch of shares or get a bunch of plays, and they would really only judge the beats that got the most plays because they would have so many beats. It's too many beats to listen to. And with Grapefruit, the beginning of that track is just gonna be honest, it's not the greatest, but I kept it on here and I kept it in here because I do like that track. I like what it eventually becomes, but the beginning is very kind of annoying and basic. Casanova, on the other hand, I actually was a little salty that that one at least didn't get some sort of recognition, because that beat contest, I was actually paying attention to all of the top tracks and everything, and most of them were just the sample with some drum loops on it, like at the top. And I think the one that won was even just a sample playing with the drum loop. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're just, who wants creativity when you can just, and not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with just grabbing a sample and putting a drum loop over it. That's a lot of fun to do. It just kind of stinks when you put some work into chopping up a sample and separating different parts of the sample and trying to be creative with it, and you lose to drag and drop. But, it is what it is. Casanova it's pretty close. It's pretty close. I think it might be my favorite rap beat that I made, but it's pretty close. I really love strings. I love violins. So obviously the violin sample, I'm just gonna love that. But it's one of my favorites. I could say this for all of these beats, honestly. These are just 16 beats out of the 80 plus I had on my computer that I went through to make this album. So I really was debating putting this on the album or not, but I wanted to do something really minimal. I have quite a few beats I made that were not a lot of sounds, but I kind of feel like I still feel like there's a groove. There's a vibe to it. And Wait is just, it's one note repeated over and over again. Making that track, I don't know if I was into sound design yet or if I was still going through presets, but I was just kind of just playing with this one, and I just kept hitting the note over and over again. I'm like, I kind of like the way that sounds. And so I figured out the tempo and then put some drums on it. And I was like, where can I go from here? And I didn't really know where to go, so I just pitched it up, pitched it down, and kind of just slowed down, just hitting the note as kind of like a intro and a outro and stuff. So that's that track. Once upon a time, I used to make video skits with a dear friend of mine. We stopped making them because it was difficult to get together to make a skit every week. One of the video ideas I had was we could be like rappers and do like a silly, stupid rap song. I made these two beats as kind of like silly, simple. Well, Filthy is kind of like a, oh yeah, tough guy beat, and it was gonna be kind of like a joke on that. And I Spy is more of a, I don't know, that beat's just kind of silly to me with just the flute and everything. I actually ended up listening to the beats quite a lot, and I enjoyed them, so I threw them on the album. So that's the story behind those. I didn't really know how to place these. Pong is when I started getting hardware. The sample that you hear is a sound I made on the Volca FM, the first synth I ever got. Technically, the first piece of hardware I got was a pocket operator. Actually, let me just grab it. So this was the first piece of hardware I ever got. This little pocket operator. This was the second. So this is a PO. I forgot the number. The numbers aren't on here. This is a pocket operator rhythm. This is a pocket operator sub. They used to have, they were titled by their numbers, like a PO13 or something like that. I ended up getting a third one, PO33, the sampler one. That's the best pocket operator out of all of them. This was my first hardware synthesizer, this Volca FM, and it came with this chart that teaches you all the algorithms for FM synthesis. Now, if you don't know what FM synthesis is, why don't focus on my face, focus on the card. If you don't know what FM synthesis is, and this is all the menu diving fun stuff. FM synthesis is probably the most convoluted form of synthesis to learn. And that was the first form of synthesis that I learned. I spent so many hours tinkering on this little box. This is what made me fall in love with sound design, because so many people I saw on YouTube and stuff, and on the internet in general, complained about how hard it was to menu dive and make sounds on this thing, like how long it took. And I loved doing it. So I'm like, man, if this is difficult and if I love doing this, maybe I should get more into the sound design stuff, because I actually enjoy this. And that's how I fell in love with sound design. The sound, the melody that plays throughout the song, I programmed a little melody on there, and I recorded it, and then I moved a couple knobs, recorded it again, moved a couple knobs, recorded it again. So that's why the sound kind of changes throughout the track. And then I arranged it in the DAW, added drums and everything. That drone that you hear throughout the entire song is just reverb from that sound. And I just, turn the reverb on max in the DAW in FL Studio, and just looped that reverb sound, and just it's playing through the entire track. Indecisive, technically it is the last track that I ever made in FL Studio. I think I finished it like a year ago, but I really made it like 2 or 3 years ago. There was a TikTok of this guy going, hamburger, cheeseburger, Big Mac, Whopper, hamburger, cheeseburger, Big Mac, Whopper. And I was like, ooh, that kind of has a rhythm. That kind of has a groove to it. I want to sample that and turn that into a beat. I start playing around with it, sampling it or whatever. And then I take that audio, and there's this feature you can do in FL Studio where you can take the audio and it'll change it into MIDI notes. So I did that with him saying hamburger, cheeseburger, Big Mac, Whopper. And it was a mess, but I got rid of all these random notes everywhere, and it was the melody. It was the melody of what Indecisive is. And I was like, oh dude, this is pretty cool. And the sample really wasn't fitting anywhere anymore. So I kind of threw out the sample. I was like, the sample was just the inspiration that started it. Then I got Indecisive. Now it's called Indecisive because it actually started the end of the track. That was what I started with. As I was kind of messing with one of the synth sounds, I was like, I think this would sound better as like a 4 on the floor type situation, which was a little out of my wheelhouse. I was kind of messing around with it here and there, but I didn't really know if I could do it or not. So I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. So I kind of started the 4 on the floor thing, and I still didn't want to let go of what I originally started with. So I kept both. I kept both essentially, which is why it's called Indecisive, because I didn't know. I was like, is this where I'm going with my music? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Indecisive, hence the title. So Crypt was technically, it wasn't made in FL Studio. That track was entirely made on my MPC-1. I made this track, originally I just had it on my MPC-1, just a little loop. And my buddy that I made the skits with, he was doing a skit for his youth group. And it was a rap, and he was like, hey, do you have any beats? Now, I did have those other 2 beats from earlier. I don't know why I didn't think to send him those. Probably because I was in this zone of trying to work on the MPC at the time. So that's probably where my head was at. No, it wasn't youth, it was VBS. It was a VBS rap video. That's what it was. He used that for the VBS rap. And it was a fun track to make. I love that beat. Wanky was made with a Digitact, because at this point I had a Digitact, a Microfreak, and a Hydrosynth desktop. This was the first track I made with that. I had my little Zoom. I had the Digitact going in mono. Nightmare. Digitact going in mono, the Microfreak coming in mono, and then the Hydrosynth having the other two ports. So here, let me just show you. This has 2 inputs there, 2 inputs there. I eventually bought a thing on the top so I could have 6 inputs. I did not know that I could route the audio through my Digitact, route the Microfreak through the Digitact, because I was still learning all this stuff. Still pretty new to the hardware world. This track, I made it, recorded it, put it in FL Studio, and the only thing I did in FL Studio, besides the master, all these tracks were mastered in FL Studio using Ozone 9. And the only thing I did in FL Studio was the risers and the impacts. Kind of a hybrid track, I guess. So this was the very first iteration of the table. So I had the Digitact, the Digitone, the Microfreak, and the Hydrosynth. Years ago, I had the idea for this album, Doodle Beats. It was going to be different. So Basement was the first track. Then there was a track I made called Goofy, Dank, Fidget, Uplift. I don't remember what these sound like. I should probably go back and look at them. Basement was the first one that I recorded. I spent a couple days just performing it over and over again, trying to get it right. I recorded the first draft. This is just the first draft because I messed up. And there's a whole section that I didn't even do in the performance. And that is what's on the album, that first draft. Because I kept that first draft and I would listen to it. and I would listen to it, and I would listen to it, and I would listen, and I'm like, man, I kind of like it the way it is. Every sound except for the main bass is a preset on the Hydra synth. Everything else I made. The drums were made using this sampled on the Digitakt, and all the other sounds I made. I love making sounds. I love sound design. I spent all month on these 16 tracks that were already done, by the way. So these tracks, I had already quote unquote mastered them years ago, but now with my more years of experience and actually trying to mix the sounds better and get the levels better, I'm like, like Wanky, I can't fix Wanky. Wanky was just recorded, like I told you, I just recorded it straight into the Zoom. I don't really have proper stems of that. So it just kind of sounds the way it sounds, you know? Anyways, thank you. If you stuck around and watched this whole video, God bless you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Doodle Beats is out. I hope you enjoy it. It's on all the streaming platforms. It's even on Roblox. That was an option, so I checked the box. I was like, I'll put it on Roblox. Maybe my kids will see it in a game. But yeah, it's on all the streaming platforms. And yeah, have a blessed day.